Good morning, everyone. Uh, so I just wanted to take a minute to talk about my experience with First. And for those who don't know me, I probably have been coming to First with my husband Michael for probably 8 years or so now, almost since we moved to Philadelphia. And I will say we had a rigorous search process for a church when we first moved to town. We sort of drew a circle of a 10-minute walk from our apartment at the time, and then within that circle found all the churches and started to look for the things that one looks for great teaching and for great music and for people who were nice and for social values that we felt like were in keeping with our own. And after a few false starts, we found ourselves at First Presbyterian, and we found a lot of reasons to stay. And all of those things that we looked for were here. The teaching has always been wonderful, and the music is the best of any church that I have ever been to. And the people are wonderful, and those things have always been true, and I think will continue to be true. But I will say that for the first few years when we were coming, we mostly thought of this, I would say, as the church that we went to rather than truly our church. And we didn't get deeply involved. So, we were those people, and sometimes still are, who arrive 1 minute before the choir starts at 11 and leave during the postlude or right afterward. And we didn't really take those steps to dive in and get involved. And so again, it felt more like a church where we attended and less like a church that was ours. And I think in many ways, we were takers, we were receivers of what First had to offer rather than givers and people who were giving back into this community and kind of really a part of the life of the church. And for me, that changed very specifically. I can point to when. It was in the beginning of 2012, and the concerted efforts of Sue Ellen Smith and Larry Schlegel, who I think might have been in collusion at the time, but who came together and asked me to get involved. And so for them, that was both to be involved with the Membership and Evangelism Committee and to become a greeter. And at the time, it was a little bit like, I didn't feel like I knew a lot of people. I didn't feel necessarily like I had a lot to give. But I said yes, and I got involved. And of course, you will not be surprised that that's when I started to really put down roots and for it to feel like this was my church and I was a part of that community. And I realized I had been thinking about it backwards, where you sort of have that subconscious thought, like, once I feel really invested and like a part of things, that's when I'm going to really, give my time or volunteer or get involved. But that's not how it works, of course. It works completely the opposite way, where once you dive in, once you're giving of yourself and you're volunteering and you're getting involved, that's when you start to be invested and a part of that community. And so I did put down roots in ways that were great personally. I have made lots of friends. You start to see more people who you know, more people whose lives you are familiar with and invested in over that time. And so that has been a huge blessing for me. But also, I would say, it is tremendously humbling, and has been for these last 5.5 years or so as I have been more involved, to sit next to and serve next to so many of you and so many people who have been so faithful for so long and who give of their time in ways that are modest, from packing up chairs and pouring coffee, to big and strategic and everything in between. And so as I have witnessed that, I have felt, again, like it is such a great blessing for me and so emblematic of the kind of community that I want to be a part of. I know, looking out at the faces that I see today, that so many of you already know this because you have been those people. You have been there faithfully along the way, giving of yourselves in so many ways to create the church that I first came in and was just a taker of at first, to create the music and the teaching and the programs and the missions and the beauty around us. That doesn't happen by magic. That happens because people prosaically give their time, and they give their talent, and they give their treasure, as we used to say in fundraising. It is money, it is time, and it is truly yourself and whatever you can bring to the table. And I would say, for those of you, any of you who are in the boat that I was in, where you think of church as a place that you go to, or even as your church, but one where you haven't taken that leap and you haven't maybe gotten so involved, I would say, as you're thinking of this next year, certainly to give financially, because again, it doesn't happen by magic. None of this does. It happens because we take that responsibility ourselves, but not just to give financially. I think it is truly the best that it can be when we give our treasury, yes, but of our time and talents as well. So find ways to get involved, whether it's the Habitat morning or the casserole morning or serving on a committee or a board. To those of you who were already doing that, I thank you for creating that environment for me and that space for me to come in and be able to do that. And for those of you, again, who are in the position that I was, I would say, like, let's make that our burden and our community as well, because ultimately we honor the people who came before, we honor God, and that is the great privilege. Thank you.